friends, I'm Dia and I'm back with a new video on my channel, and that is Biology Class 10 Chapter, Control and Coordination. So, before we get into the chapter, or before we get into what control and coordination is, we have a chapter before this in biology, and that will be put in the description below, and please check out for that. And now, first thing, nervous system. What is nervous system? It is one system, something like our digestive system, excretory system, and other systems in our body. So, the nervous system, the basic unit of the nervous system is the nerves. So, how does a nerve look like? Nerve is very similar to a tree. It has got branches, it has got a trunk and a root. The branches of a tree and a neuron is called, that is called dendrite, and the trunk-like structure in a neuron is called as the axon, or you have myelin sheets around it, and in the bottom you have the roots like structure that's called as the axon terminals or the nerve endings. And then at the axon terminal, the information that is received or is passed through happens there, and the gap between a nerve ending and a dendrite is known as synapse, where the electron or the process of giving out of information from one neuron is processed. And then myelin sheath, it covers, or it is an insulation to the neuron, and it is very important because that makes it move fast or slow. Then the myelin sheath is made of the Schwann cells. The Schwann cells are this covering that's around the axon, and each nervous system has got nucleus also. So the nervous system is usually divided into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. In this video, we would be using CNS for central nervous system and PNS for peripheral nervous system. So, what are the components of central nervous system? For the central nervous system, we have the brain and the spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord are the main components or the complex components of our body. And then the peripheral nervous system has rest all of our nerves, all the nerves in our bodies, including from our toe to our head, except for brain and spinal cord. Okay, and the orders are placed here. That means in our brain only the orders are placed or orders are told, and the rest of these neurons completes these orders. And then axon is a whole part down the cell body. The cell body is in the top and the axon comes down. And then the node of Ranvier in the neuron was found out by the person, and that name, Ranvier, is that guy's name. And then the gap between two Schwann cells is called as the node of Ranvier. So now we have finished what neuron is and the structure of neuron. So we will move on to the next thing, that is our brain. Brain is a complex, very complex structure, and it is divided into parts. The brain has two parts, the left brain and the right brain. So, we'll discuss about what the left brain sees and what the right brain sees. So, the left brain or the left hemisphere is positive, or it is the speech. It holds on, or it controls the speech. And the other one is the the right one is the non-verbal. Your actions, your writing skills all comes under your right brain, and that is the negative part of your brain. And then if your left hand is if you have heard about this, I think most of them know about it. Left-handers right brain works and right-handers left brain works. That is a very common thing. The people who write with both their hands have more knowledge, that is what people say, and that is true also. And now I'll give you a beautiful example. You're walking through a beautiful garden or a beautiful street where you have so many flowers in your left side. And when you look at it, your right eye catches the sight, not your left eye. And your left brain synthesizes it. So that is itself a fascinating fact or thought. And next, we see our right brain is working. When we see, our right brain is always working. When we smell, when we hear, when you say the other one is a flower, or that is a phone, or this is a tablet, your left brain works. And then whatever we see in the left goes to the right, and the right goes to the left. So it's something that people haven't known yet, and if you haven't known, it is a good fact for you now. So the brain is divided into three: cerebrum, cerebellum and medulla. So we'll deal with cerebrum first. Cerebrum forms the most of the brain, and that's the biggest part of the brain. And what is its functions? If someone asks you what are its functions, it is the senses, the sight, the smell, the hearing capacity, the taste, the touch, the feel. Everything is controlled by the cerebrum. And even the imagination. You think for a long time. That means your cerebrum works that much time. When you dream, your cerebrum works. And all our thoughts are also controlled by the cerebrum. Now cerebellum, that is called as the little brain. It is the small part of the brain, and it controls the motion, the balance and the learning skills. When you walk or when you ride a cycle, your cerebellum works. And your learning capacity, when you learn this chapter or when you learn control and coordination for your school exams, you can know that your cerebellum is working. And now we move on to the third one, medulla oblongata. So that handles digestion, all the involuntary actions, that is like digestion, and your heart is beating, and your respiration, and all the other involuntary actions. This happens without your conscience. And then our brain is a complex structure, and if it is damaged, it's very hard, or you can say nil repair has happened. So to cover this or to protect this, there are meninges, and there are 3 layers of meninges around our brain. And around this meninges there is a hard substance. It's quite hard, and that is our skeleton or our skull. And these all protect our brain. These help the brain from not being damaged. And there is cerebrospinal fluid in our brain, which helps or prevents jerking. And then now we move on to the nerves. Nerves are of 2 types: cranial nerves and spinal nerves. As you all know, spinal nerves, by the name itself, it is connected to the spines. And cranial nerves, it is connected to the brain. It arises from the brain and then move on to the rest of the body, and from the spinal cord to the rest of the body. So there is another type of neurons called as afferent neurons and efferent neurons. They have a difference, that's a very big difference, afferent and efferent. So the afferent carries information to the CNS, the central nervous system. So it is to the brain and the spinal cord. The efferent neurons are to the brain and the spinal cord, and the efferent neurons carries the information from the brain to the rest of the body. When reflex action happens, when you touch something hot, or when you go hold something that is burning, or when you see fire and you go and touch it and then you pull back. When you touch, or when you feel like touching, it is your afferent neuron working, and when you pull back your hand, efferent neuron is working. And then the sensory neurons and the motor neurons, they are the next category. The efferent neurons in the peripheral nervous system is called the sensory neurons. So the peripheral nervous system has these efferent neurons which help this in the reflex action. And then this happens in our body due to chemical reactions. There is so many chemicals, as we learned in the last chapter, that our hormones, our enzymes, all of these react for putting into an action. So reflex action, that is something that you do without your knowledge. If you blink your eyes when there is light, or you take out your hands when something is hot, or something like that. The reflex loop starts from our hands to the brain and back to our hands. So the spinal cord is also under a packaging. You might all know what the packaging is called. Obviously, the spinal cord or the vertebral column. It is divided into pieces, and these pieces joined together to form the backbone. That is why we can bend, or else we would have stood stiff. You can never bend. And then, the components of reflex action. What are the components of reflex action? The spinal cord, the receptor, the sensory neuron, the interneuron, the motor neuron, and the effector. What are they? The spinal cord, the receptor, the sensory neuron, the motor neuron, and the effectors. So these all are very important. If any of your neurons are not working, you would go touch a hot substance. Even if you know it's burning your hands, you won't put it back, and that is very painful also. PNS. The peripheral nervous system is divided into two. That is somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So, what is somatic nervous system? And this is responsible for all voluntary actions. That means for all voluntary actions. Autonomic nervous system is again divided into two. That is sympathetic and parasympathetic. So, sympathetic happens under stress. When you are under very stress, your sympathetic neurons or sympathetic nervous system works. And I will give you a nice example. It's not nice, but it's still. You are running away from a big, huge dinosaur. You have to run 50 meters. And that time, your which neuron or which nervous system works? Obviously, the sympathetic nervous system works, because it's due to stress or anxiety or out of fear that nervous system works. And then this is also known under stress. I told you that is flight, fright, or response. This is the response to fight and flight. And then what are the outcomes, or what are the effects of these neurons working? That is the dilation of the pupils, increase in blood supplies to lungs and muscles, and increased heartbeat and the blood pressure. When you increase the heart beats, the BP anyway will increase, and then activates the adrenaline. Adrenaline is very important, because that is the one which controls our anxiety level. That or else we would have anyway our nerves would have burst and we would have passed away much earlier. And then reduces blood supply to digestive system and the reproductive system. When you people have a stress and then you have to run so much, you don't think when you see dinosaur, okay, I will have my this full pizza and then I will run. That is not possible anyway. You will run before that. Before your pizza is your secondary thing. First you run away. That is why, because your digestive system doesn't want nothing anymore. Just life is much better than you run away. So the parasympathetic nervous system, that takes things very easy. It's the parasympathetic nervous system is always like, oh, this is easy. Now I learn it next time. It's an easy taking, or it is very cool. Cool as a cucumber. And then it reduces the heartbeat. It is the responsible for nose moist, and then it constricts the lungs. It helps us to produce saliva. Yeah. Oh, saliva is controlled by the parasympathetic nervous system. It helps us to have a nice sleep. So, yeah, today my parasympathetic system is very active now also. I feel like sleeping. So, now what is homeostasis? Homeostasis, it is the balancing of both sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Because if your heartbeat is so high for no reason, your blood pressure is so high, and if your beat or your heartbeat is so low, you will die obviously. There's no other thing to say. Now we move on to the next one. Next, we now finished about the nervous system in human being or in animals. Now we move on to plants. Plant hormones and movements. So, plants on the move. That is our heading. Plants on the move. How do you think plants can move? And if you think that, how is that? The plants can bend. They can swing, or they can do many things, but they cannot walk. So, touch me not, or in the scientific world you call it as mimosa pudica, and that is our touch me not. And if this touch me not is touched by someone, it closes its leaves, and that is also a movement. That's a movement in response. That's a good movement, or that is for its self-protection. Defense against animal eating it. That is what the plant think, that someone is coming to pluck it off or eat it. That is why it does the self-defense, closing of the leaves. And then the sudden movement dislocates that the harmful insects from attacking it. If these leaves are not closing, and if some pests come, and that can destroy these leaves. But that doesn't happen because of these movements. And if it is not movement, if it is not motile, if it is immotile, then it would have been destroyed much earlier. So that there is some defense for everything. And then the Venus flytrap. The Venus flytrap closes its mouth when insects come. because it has some hair-like structure in both their flaps, and when an insect comes, these sense it and then it closes. So the only thing that we always see the Venus flytrap. The name makes us think that, oh, Venus flytrap or this plant only eats flies, but it's not true. It eats any and every insect. Even if a leaf falls on it, it closes and it has that. That's not only flies, okay? And its diet is approximately, the Venus flytrap has about 30% of spiders, 33% of ants, 10% of beetles, 10% of grasshopper, and 5% of fly. Flies are the least, and still we call it the Venus flytrap. And then we will see about it in detail. So, why do you think the Venus flytrap is always said to be a carnivorous plant? And do you think it is always a carnivorous plant? It is. And why doesn't it has green leaves, and then why doesn't it do photosynthesis? It is because the plant grows in conditions where the minerals are very less in the soil. So to get these minerals, they have to catch another organism. So they depend on other organisms for their minerals. So the next one, the nitrogen content is very less. So nitrogen is important for the plants. That is the second reason why this Venus flytrap consumes other insects. And then, now what is stimulus and response? Stimulus. What is stimulus? So, I'll give you an example. When you touch a hot substance, or when the flashlight is on, you blink your eyes. So, the light is the stimulus. And the blinking of the eyes is the response. So, if you touch a hot substance, you pull back your hand. The pulling back of the hand is the response, and the heat or the hotness is the stimulus. So now we'll move on to the tropic movement and asterisk movement in plants. So these tropic movements, the turning movements of biological organisms, usually in plants, in response to an environmental stimulus. So this is in response to stimulus. Tropic movements. There are so many kinds or many types of tropic movements that are. First one we'll be dealing with is the growth response and the negative and the positives of all each of these. So we'll get into detail. So plant leaves turns towards the sun. Have you ever noticed, or you can try this at home, take a potted plant, keep it inside your house and open a window where the sunlight can come in. So you can see the plant will move out through the window. That is called phototropism. Movement due to the response of sunlight. Not even sunlight, even normal light. If you keep a plant in a dark room, and if you keep a small LED in the end of the room, the plant will go towards it. And now as you know, that is called as phototropism. And now this phototropism, there are two types of phototropism. So the upper part of the plant, that is the shoot, is positively phototrophic, and the lower part is negatively phototrophic. And next we have our plants. Do you think if you plant a tree and you planted a plant and then you pluck it out, then you hang it somewhere, do you think the root will go up and the shoot will come down? No, obviously that will dry or die. It needs a material, and the root grows down. The root never grows up. Have you seen any trees roots coming up like this? No, roots always go down and shoots always go up. So this is due to gravity. The roots come down due to gravity. So that is positively geotropic. Geotropism is the movement of plants due to gravity or in response to gravity. So roots are positively geotropic and the shoots are negatively geotropic. The next one, the plant movement in response to water. So, water. Which part of the plant is in more touch with the water? That is the shoot. And that is the root. The shoot is away from the water. So, the soil has water content. The plant that grows in water has the roots in the water, not the shoot. They don't grow upside down again. So all these show that the shoot shows negative hydrotropism, and the shoot shows positive hydrotropism. And then, what is phobic? What do you mean by the word phobic? Phobic means scared. If you are hydrophobic, you are scared of water. if you're hydrophilic, you are in love with water. So the growth response away from the stimulus is known as negative tropism. That is what we discussed till now. And then growth response towards the stimulus or in response to stimulus is positive tropism. And then now we have one more tropic movement, that is the chemotropic movement due to the action of chemicals. So that can be if the plant grows away from any pesticides, that is due to the chemotropism. And then plants do not have complex nervous system. So what does they have? They have complex chemical communication, CCC. So these complex chemical communication, they happen with the help of chemical compounds. There are many chemical compounds, that is the hormones, the plant hormones. The plant hormones or the phyto. We don't say plant hormones, we say phyto usually. So plant hormones, the auxin, it is one of the main hormone. Cytokinin, gibberellin, and abscisic acid and ethylene are the hormones present in plants. So auxin helps in cell elongation. That is why the shoot grows up and the roots go down. The cytokinin helps in the cell division. That is also a response to the growth. And gibberellin is used for producing seedless fruits. Yeah, in shops you get these watermelons without seeds. You get these grapes without seeds, etc. That is due to the presence of gibberellin. You inject gibberellin more to the plants which has to produce seedless fruits. And why doesn't our scientist find mangoes without seeds? That's a question we ask. Abscisic acid. It is the responsible for cell dormancy. The cell dormancy, the responsible person or the responsible thing is the abscisic acid. And ethylene is my favorite hormone in the plants. That is because it ripens the fruit. That makes the juicy mangoes. Now we finish with the plant hormones. Now we move on to animal hormones. So like when we are nervous, we start sweating, our eyes turn red, our heart beats fast, we have a faster breathing rate, and sometimes we faint also. So this is all due to the presence of adrenaline. That I told you before, when you ran 50 meters with a dinosaur, you didn't want your pizza. Yeah, that's true. Hormones are secreted by different glands. These different glands or these special organs are known as hormonal glands. Our control of our body is done by both the nervous system and the endocrine system. So, and they are the two ways of passing of informations in our body. Not only in our body, not only in human's body, in animal body also. So, we'll look what the endocrine system and nervous system, the differences are. First, the endocrine system, it involves hormonal signal or chemical signals, but the nervous system has electrical or nerve impulses. They don't have chemical transmissions. And then under the endocrine system, hormones are transported by the blood. The hormones are transported by the blood. The blood has these hormones. The endocrine system, they excrete it directly to the blood. So they are ductless glands, and these glands excrete or they secrete these hormones into the blood, and this blood carries it. And then these impulses of these nerves are transmitted by the neurons or through neurons. And then these hormonal informations are very slow. They reach only very slow. It should be dissolved with the blood, and our heart has to sit and then mix it, and then has to send it go. Then when it comes, it's very slow. But our nerve impulse is very obedient. So it's the neuron or the neuron says go, it comes fast to the root, it has to come. So that is why it is a fast information source. In the other one, the endocrine system is a slow information source. And then it is responsive, but it usually takes long time. The hormones are also responsive, but it takes very long time. So, and the other one, it's quick responses. As you take your hands away, you don't think, you keep the, oh, it is hot, now I have to lift my hands. This is not how you do. You touch it, you move your hands back. So endocrine glands are ductless and therefore they produce it directly to the blood. And there is other glands which have duct, the glands with the ducts. And the endocrine glands, we'll begin with that. First one is pancreas. It is both endocrine as well as exocrine. Exocrine means they have ducts. They are not directly produced to the blood. So this is both endocrine and exocrine because insulin and glucagon are endocrine hormones, and pancreatic juice, that is for digestion, is exocrine juice because it's carried through the ducts and it is fallen into our stomach. And this insulin regulates the blood sugar level. It regulates the blood sugar. It lowers the blood sugar level. And glucagon, it increases the blood sugar level. If any of these goes wrong, you have a problem. So the endocrine system is well connected to the digestive and the circulatory system. So this pancreatic juice, this pancreas causes many disorders. So if insulin is less, there is a disease called diabetes. So diabetes happens due to the lack of insulin production in our body. Then the pituitary gland, the master gland, it is in our brain, and pituitary gland commands all the other glands. It tells all the other glands to work properly. If the pituitary is having some problem or it's having some malfunction, then the whole of your body, the whole of the hormones are irregularly maintained. Then the thyroid gland. Obviously, the thyroid gland produces thyroid hormone or thyroxine, and that is situated in our throat. So these thyroid glands or these thyroxine is required for the body in very high amounts because they look after our metabolism. They are responsible for the body metabolism or hormonal metabolism of humans and animals. So these thyroid glands to produce thyroxine needs iodine, and if iodine is less, these thyroxine is less, and that leads to a disease called as goiter. Goiter happens due to the lack of thyroxine. And then so how will you get iodine? You can't go take an iodine solution and drink. So doctors usually ask people who have a tendency to have these thyroid problems to have iodized salt. This iodized salt you have seen in these Asirvad iodized salt and all. So we have to usually take iodized salt. Then we move on to the next gland, that is the adrenaline. The adrenaline, they are like happy birthday hats for the kidney. They are in the top of the kidney, which looks like a birthday hat for the kidney. So these adrenaline, as I told you, they secrete the flight hormones. They maintain the blood level, they dilate the pupil, they increase the blood to the lungs and to the muscles, they decrease the blood to the digestive system and the reproductive system, and they do a lot of things. They are very important because they are the ones who maintain you, or they are the ones who controls you. If there was no adrenaline, when you walk out, you see a board, then you stand there and ha 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 ha, you start laughing. If someone says something, you start shouting at them. That is all because of your adrenaline. And in the teenage or at the age of adolescence, these hormones are not maintained properly, and that is why children be arrogant. And then now we have finished with the hormones, the normal hormones. Now we have the sex glands or the sex hormones, the gonad glands. So in boys and girls, there are different hormones. That they are the only hormonal difference, or they are the only main hormonal difference. That is, the ovaries produce estrogen, which is very important for the production of ova. And in the male or in the boys, that's testes that produce testosterone. Then we come to the last part of the video, that is the question hour. Now we have the endocrine glands, and how will you identify it? Everything is for 1 mark, so it's very easy, I guess. So we'll get into the first one, that is the pituitary gland. There are 3 questions. The first question: which gland is present in the brain? That is the pituitary hormone. The pituitary gland that is situated next to the hypothalamus. And then the next question is, which hormone is produced by the pituitary? That is the growth hormone. And the third question is, what happens if the growth hormone is less or more secreted? So if it is less, it causes dwarfism. The baby does not grow big, or it does not grow as usual. It grows, but no, it grows up to a limit. It doesn't grow much. And if it is more, it grows up huge, and that looks like a giant, and that is called as gigantism. So the two are, if it is less, it causes dwarfism. If it is more, it causes gigantism. And then we move on to the next gland, that's the thyroid gland. What is the butterfly shaped gland? That is the thyroid glands. The thyroid glands are situated over here, and there are two of them. And this is the thyroid glands. And then which hormone does it produce? So which hormone does thyroid gland produce? That is the thyroxine. Thyroxine is very important for our body. So what happens if the thyroxine is produced? That causes goiter to happen. And the next question is, what causes goiter? That is lack of thyroxine. Why is there a lack of thyroxine? That is because there is lack of iodine in our consumption or in our daily diets. And then we come to the pancreas. In that we have two questions. The first one is, which hormone does pancreas produce? That is the insulin. And what is the deficiency of insulin causes? That is diabetes. And we come to the next one, that is the adrenaline glands. What do the adrenaline gland produce? That is adrenaline. What does adrenaline do? It controls the stress. So it is produced during this when you are very stressed or when you are under anxiety. Where is it located? It is located just above the kidney. It is a birthday hat for as I told you, it's a birthday hat for the kidney. And then we have the last one, which determines the determines the sex. That is the gonad. The gonad glands determine the sex cells or the sex producing glands. So we come to the end of this video. So I hope you might have understood everything, and if you have any doubts or queries, please feel free to send a mail, or it's always your post in the comment box. You can comment me on your doubts, your queries, and if you have something, suggestions for me, you can give me in the description below. And please do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the small notification button. And then bye bye.